All right, well, welcome everyone to Business Plan Basics. So glad that you are here today. And just give me a moment while I get the presentation up and running here. And we will get started. Okay, come on, PowerPoint, there we go. All right, so if you wouldn't mind if somebody in just the chat box confirm you can see the presentation, that will be great. And while you're doing that, I just wanted to, again, thank you again for joining today. I hope you're safe and healthy from wherever you're joining today. And again, my name is Kara Cote. I'm a business advisor with WESC out of the Saskatoon office. And feel free to introduce yourself in the chat box as well. Let us know if you're thinking of starting a business or you currently own one, or even just maybe what industry you're in. So it's always nice to get a sense of where everyone's at. So let's get started here. And I'm actually just going to stop sharing my face and I will get going here. All right, so today, this is what we're going to tackle. And again, we're going to make this presentation available after, so you can watch parts of it again or see some of the resources and find those links. And again, as Josie put in the chat, there are the templates available to work from today. You'll find that at the Loans Workspace link there. So we're going to be using the business plan guide and the cash flow template. So again, we'll talk quickly about WESC, a little bit about entrepreneurship and the purpose of a business plan. That's kind of important. And then we're going to spend majority of our time in the business plan content itself. So our goal today is to kind of review what each section is and give you a few tips on where you can find more information and really kind of flush out some of those areas a little bit more for yourself. Then we're going to get into a little bit of risk analysis, some financing, and then if we've got some time at the end, we're going to wrap it up with a Q&A. So we do have a lot of content to go through today, so I'm going to try to be quick to go through this to make sure that we do have time at the end so you can ask those questions. So, and you will note that we do have the questions and answers option in Zoom today. So if you have a specific question, put it in that Q&A section so it's easier for me to see as the chat does get a little bit full sometimes. And if you're not really comfortable with that, feel free, you see my email address right there. That's ccote@wesc.ca. Just pop me an email and I can get back to you after the presentation's done. All right, so WESC, so who we are, we've been around since 1995, started with only 6 members, and now we're well over 1,000 members. We have offices in Saskatoon and Regina, but we serve the whole province. We're a not-for-profit, and we are funded by the Western Economic Diversification of Canada, so shout out to them. And then our pillars of service. So obviously we do a business advising, for starting, building, or growing and scaling your business. And, helping you get that operation, in control and running a really successful business. So our business advisors work with you one-on-one and specifically helping you with a business plan as well. And then the learning and connecting. So we offer seminars, webinars, workshops, and other learning opportunities to improve and empower your skills and knowledge. And just check out our website. We've got a great website with so many resources. You can spend days on that thing, so check it out. And then finally, we've got the financing. So WESC provides loans from $5,000 up to $150,000. So that's an option for you too. And your business advisor would be happy to chat with you about that too. And then this isn't a pillar of service, but it's kind of like our base, but I just want to mention it because advocacy is so important to us. And WESC's vision is to close the gender entrepreneurship gap. So we do have a section on our website too that kind of discusses a bit more about what we do in advocacy and how important it is to us. All right, entrepreneurship. And so what is it? So the capacity and willingness to develop, organize, and manage a business venture along with the risks in order to make a profit. So you're going to see there's a link there to a TED Talk, and it's about grit. It's by Angela Lee Duckworth, and I would encourage you to check it out. She talks about how grit is perseverance and passion for the long-term goals. And research actually shows that success doesn't depend on talent, it depends on intensely focusing on a goal with passion and perseverance. So if you got time, check that link out. Okay, so let's touch briefly on the business model before we dive into the business plan. I'll try to speak up a little bit here. I just noticed somebody's having a hard time listening. So the business model is the design, and the business plan is the document that describes that design. So there's all sorts of business models. For example, you could be a manufacturer. So you could be making finished goods from raw materials and sell to a distributor, or you could be a distributor, buying from a manufacturer and selling to the retailer public. There's also subscription-based models such as Netflix, service models such as consulting. So it's good to know the model that you're working from for a few different reasons. One, you can track down materials like case studies or best practices to give you a bit of a head start on that as well. Okay, so the business plan, why do I need one? So the business plan is the blueprint of your business. It outlines the direction you'll take, how you're going to get there, and project some results for you. So it'll reflect how all the pieces of your business are going to fit together. It helps you evaluate whether it'll be successful or if you need to make some tweaks to make it successful. Also, what's really great about it is that it's dynamic. So it changes over time as you adjust your services or your product offerings to meet consumer demand and adapt your marketing and strategy that way. So your long-term goals may also change dramatically as new opportunities and issues arise. So review your business plan regularly to see how you're progressing and make any changes necessary. When you're starting your business, it's easy to lose sight of your goals when you're dealing with the day-to-day responsibilities. And you're going to be like inundated with advice and people telling you about opportunities to expand your service or products, invest in more marketing. So with the business plan, you'll have more confidence to say that that's a great idea, but that doesn't quite fit into my plans right now. So maybe in the future. Or maybe it actually might tell you, that's a really great idea and it does fit into my business concept and strategy right now. So, and then there's some benefits to it as well. So internally, it forces that founding team to work together and hammer out some of those hard details. Externally, communicating the merits of your new ventures to outsiders such as investors or bankers. And again, it doesn't matter where you're getting your financing from, you can't get it without a business plan. So signs of a good business plan. So market segmentation. So this is where you're actually kind of diving deep into the market and defining who your customer is, because not everyone can be your customer. And showing a clear path for how you're going to achieve your goals is really important. And setting realistic financial projections that are based on research and other supporting documents. You're going to have a thorough risk mitigation plan. You're going to have to be clear and concise. Make sure you've proofread it. Maybe have a few other people read it for you too. And be confident, because you know your stuff and you're going to rock this. You just got to put it down on paper now. So. And then the last piece, again, if you're looking for that financing, is proving that you've got that equity contribution, that you're contributing some of your money or assets towards the business starting as well. Okay, now business plan. These are the key sections of the business plan. Most templates will include some variation of this. The key sections are going to include the marketing, operations, human resources, and financial plan. So just a heads up that sometimes the human resources are included within the operational plan. And then what you're going to do is actually, even though the executive summary is near the top there, you're actually going to do that as one of the last things you're going to do because it's going to summarize that whole plan. Okay, I'll try to slow down a little bit. And then again, for that supporting documentation, that could be anything like resumes, lease agreements, quotes for what you're up to. There's a whole bunch of supporting documents that you could include to support your argument. And Sasha, I just noticed you're asking about slides being available afterwards. Yes, they certainly will, because we are going through a lot of information. Okay, so your marketing research and strategy is a good place to start when you're evaluating your business idea. It identifies whether there's a market for it, and if so, how are you going to reach them? The marketing strategies identify your customers, competitors, and your market. So it outlines the methods you'll use to reach your customers. So on this slide, you'll see on the left-hand side of the chart, that's the market analysis, which includes research. And then on the right-hand side of the chart, you're going to have the marketing planning, which describes how you'll apply this information to your business. So first, we're going to start talking about the left-hand side of the chart. So the market analysis can be categorized into these three broad categories. So as we work through them, and we'll get more specific, and starting with the industry you're operating in, then looking at the competitors, and then your customers. So we'll talk about each category, and this is the first one, the industry and market. It's a big one. So take a big gulp of that coffee, and I'm going to do the same. Just give me a second here. Okay. So an industry is a collection of businesses categorized by specific business activity. So it's important to understand the environment that you're operating in. And the reason we look at your industry is because each one will have certain characteristics specific to it. So first, industry trends are changes in the market, and they're important because they're the sources of the new opportunities and the threats. So for example, Blockbuster was negatively affected by the online streaming trend. So they could have used that as an opportunity, but they didn't do so effectively. So that ended up being a pretty impactful threat to them. Other questions to ask include, how volatile is the industry? Meaning, does the industry experience a lot of ups and downs? What are the barriers to entry? Meaning, is it difficult or easy for new companies to enter the industry? For example, there's many barriers for starting a casino because it's a highly regulated industry with high capital costs compared to something like, say, a clothing retail store. Regional trends are also important, and being aware of what's happening in Saskatchewan and your target area, whether that's Saskatoon, Regina, or anywhere else. And now the next, industry growth rate, it's also important. So in other words, is the market growing? Is there an annual growth rate, or has the market slowed down? So comparing e-commerce to bricks and mortar bookstores, you can see how this might be an important factor. So financial institutions and funding agencies will also utilize this information in making investment decisions as well. And then we look at the critical success factors. So these are the things that you have to get right in order for your business to be successful and grow. For example, in a coffee shop or a snack shop industry, access to a good workforce, cost controls, and market positioning are key. So as you can see, understanding that industry can give you that valuable insight into the opportunities and what you need to do to be successful. Okay, so you are probably wondering right now, where can you find this kind of information? So we have some wonderful resources available to you, totally free. So in Regina, there's Economic Development Regina, and Saskatoon has Square One. And they can provide you with reports like the IBIS World Report. And it gives an overview of your industry in Canada, and it touches on the items kind of we spoke about in that previous slide. So there's two types of research. So first, let's chat about the secondary research. And it can also include like the history of the industry, how does past trends impact your predictions, and what does this mean for your business? It can also include industry benchmarks, such as the average cost structure for your industry. And you can also look at spending habits. Is the consumer spending up or down? What are they spending on? And how sensitive is the industry to consumer spending habits? So next is the primary research, and that's conducted on your own from direct sources. And you can do focus groups, interviews with potential customers, surveys, observation of the competition, scope out potential spots by looking at traffic patterns in different, days and times. It's an opportunity to be really creative. You can also contact similar businesses in other markets to hear their story and what they learned. You can reach out to industry associations that are applicable to you, and they often have really great information. And secondary research gives you kind of a broader perspective of the industry, and the primary research gives you that more focused perspective. And both are going to be super important to give you that necessary insight into your business. I do see a message in the Q&A from Lynn. Hi, Lynn. Does WESC offer an outlook on trends, or is this from square one too? I'm thinking of the trends changing and how we're almost out of COVID. So with this one, so WESC doesn't provide trends on our website or anything like that. We do rely on square one to help us with that. If we do come across any research or articles posted, then we're definitely going to share that with our members as well. So we're a small group, so we don't have quite the capacity to kind of like hammer that out each day, but we'll definitely share what we find with you as well. Okay, so now the industry laws and rules. So what's applicable to your industry? So what do you need to be aware of as you open your business? So you can run through each one of these categories and kind of assess your business. Like what political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environmental considerations do you need to address? So an easy one would be like in restaurants, there's lots of health and safety regarding that. As a fun exercise you can maybe do on your own, because it's a good one because they touch on so many topics. Think of Uber and how many of these topics do they have to contend with just to exist? So we know in like politics, they need so many bylaw changes. In economy, like labor issues is pretty big for them. Technology, obviously the way they run their business, receive payments, everything like that. And we all know about the legal, Uber versus every cab company and union in the world. So you can see how these things are going to influence how they run their business. Okay, so types of markets. So we talked about industry, and now a market is a place where buyers and sellers meet to exchange goods and services for money, simply put. So start with the total population and then narrow it down. So that's when you're creating market segments. And there's different types of markets. Like, do you sell to a consumer, or do you sell to other businesses? Or is it specifically like a virtual market, just like what Amazon does? And local market now, again, narrowing it down some more, it's important to define that geographic scope. So, are you focusing on a specific city, province, maybe national or international? So it's important to include this information in your business plan. Okay, now your market size. Now we want to determine, what's the potential size of the market? Because again, not every customer, not everyone is your customer. So it's important to estimate the market size based on your customer. And we'll talk about more about who your customer is in a minute. And one You can get demographic reports from Square One and EDR in Regina to include expenditures in different categories too. So for example, if you're targeting seniors and you know your market area, you can find out how many people are in your market. If there aren't enough, then you kind of go back to the drawing board and kind of figure out what's going to work for you. And you should also consider how many competitors that you're going to be going up against as well in that market, because everyone's going to be taking a piece of that market share. So now that you know how many people are in your market, we can try and estimate some of the potential revenues, like the exciting part. So forecasting is an educated estimate based on the data gathered in your market research. So we're going to discuss two methods today of doing some forecasting. So the bottom up and the top down method. So we would actually recommend that you try both methods and compare the results. The accuracy of your projections is reflected in the closeness of the two end values that you come up with. So if there's a difference between the values, just rework the calculations and some of the assumptions and just keep plugging along. With the bottom up method shown here, you can start doing some primary research on possible location, make some estimates. And you're starting with the numbers of people passing the location, estimating the number of people who enter your business, what their average purchase might be, and the number of days that you're going to be open. And then the top-down method, you're starting with secondary research. So that's the number of people in your market area. Then estimate the percentage of who would like to use a business like yours, the number of times they use the business per year, the average sale. Then you take into consideration the number of existing competitors. And again, getting that competitors list from Square One or EDR is going to be super helpful for you to see that. Okay, so we've tackled the industry and the market section. And that's always kind of a bit of a hard one, so don't get discouraged. Reach out to your business advisor to help you out through some parts that you might be a little bit unsure about. And if you do get those reports from Square One or EDR and you don't know what you're looking at, or you need a little bit of guidance that way, your business advisor can help you with that. Okay, so let's dive into the competition. So there's different types of competitors. And remember, don't discount competitors just because they're a little different. So there's direct and indirect competition. So indirect competitors are also known as substitutes sometimes. So for example, a direct competitor of TJ's Pizza would be Pizza Hut. An indirect competitor would be Fatburger because it's satisfying the same need, but it's not providing the same product. So effective marketing strategies can be developed based on your knowledge of the competitors, and you got to make sure you know who they are. So again, take a look at products and services, the pricing, positioning and value proposition strategies, and the reputation as well. Okay, so this is an example of kind of a brief snippet of what that competitor research report is going to look like when you request one from Square One or EDR. Super useful information. Again, it's free, public information. You just got to send them an email and let them know what you're up to and what industry you're in, and they'll help guide you to get you the right competitor list. So it's also super handy because if you can't think of all the competitors, it's usually going to be on this list, and it's going to be quite a large list. So, okay, now we're going to do a little bit of competitive analysis. So using a chart like this, you can compare yourself to your competitors to understand what your key differentiators are and what really sets you apart. So those critical success factors are variables that impact, efficiency, effectiveness, viability of a business. So they're on the left-hand side of the chart there. And you can compare yourself to your competitors, based on key success factors that you identify. So understanding your competitors' strengths and weaknesses and what makes you stand out compared to your competitors can drive your strategy. So ideally, a great strength is to be distinctive and will be appealing to your customers. And this way you can identify and build, sustainable competitive advantage for your business. So, and you can always make changes based on what you learn about your competitors. And if you don't stand out on any particular item, maybe that's, a chore for you to kind of figure out how to to set yourself apart. Okay, so SWOT. Some of you might be familiar with a SWOT analysis. It puts together a lot of the concepts we've talked about so far. So this is an effective tool not only for your business plan, but also can help with strategic direction on an existing business too. So first you start with your business's internal strengths and internal weaknesses, and then you're going to look at the external opportunities and threats. And then you're going to see how you can be able to kind of turn those weaknesses into strengths and threats into opportunities. So I've got a little example for you here. So let's say I own a restaurant, small town, offer diner style food. So a strength would be, it's good, friendly service, local customer base. The weakness, I've heard some rumbles that maybe it's a bit greasy, not very healthy. An opportunity is that, there's truck stuff on the highway, but they don't know about me. And some threats would be that you heard that an ice cream shop is going to be opening up this summer. So this is my current state. So what can I do to change it? So to address the weakness, perhaps I could offer a daily like healthy soup or sandwich or salad option. I don't have to go change the whole menu, but provide some healthy choices that way. To address the opportunity, perhaps I could start an advertising campaign, put up a billboard, near the truck stop, and offer a discount for truckers as another option for them. Threats, so to address the ice cream shop, maybe offer pies and desserts, maybe not so much like the cool kid-friendly treats. Maybe I'll consider like the slushy machine or something different. So a SWOT analysis helps you understand your business environment and identify some of those opportunities. Okay, so that's it for competition. Now let's chat about some customers. So who's most likely to buy from you? Where are they going to buy, or like the physical location, or if it's not physical, does age, income, education play a role? So we're going to use some segmenting, targeting, and positioning to understand who our customer is. So segmenting is the process of dividing up your market into smaller markets. So you can use, geographic, demographic, such as age, gender, physiographic, such as lifestyle, behavior, such as brand loyalty, and divide up your market. So you can use these four categories to create customer profiles. Okay, so here's an example of how you might segment a market for a cafe, I guess specifically Danielle's Cafe at the U of S. So you can see the first one here is an 18 to 35-year-old student, on a budget, very, price conscious, in a hurry, lots of study periods and needs meals, snacks between classes, very irregular schedule. And then another one that you've identified, between 35 and 65-year-old faculty member, higher income, willing to pay a little bit more for quality. And they have a regular schedule as well. You'll see them more consistently. So, and also I've identified two other market segments here. So office workers and visitors. So you can kind of estimate the size of each one of those segments. And as you can see, the student segment is the largest, followed by the office workers. So now that you've identified the market segments, how do you assess them? So here's some criteria that you could use to assess the quality of those segments. So again, like the first one being clear, provide a description of each segment and then be measurable. So being able to measure the effective size of each segment. And then how do we gain access to this segment through promotional efforts? And then how large, like is it a substantial size segment? And is it actionable? So are there marketing programs that can be designed and that will actually attract this segment? So now that you know your market segments it's time to figure out who you should target. So remember, you can't be everything to everybody. So what segment is most attractive? So, also consider, who are your competitors targeting? What best aligns with your brand? Who's easiest to reach? And what market is the largest? So again, just some questions that you can ask. And going back to that cafe example, if you were thinking about it, what would you find most attractive? So you might immediately say students, because that's the largest segment. And that may be, but consider that students aren't there all year round, and they might have quite a bit of turnover compared to what the staff would be. So staff, again, more regular schedules, so you might have more consistent sales that way. So for your business, you need to kind of ask these questions and try to figure out your answers and develop those market segments that are most attractive to you. So you've segmented your market and you figured out who you're going to target. Now, how do you actually appeal to them? So in other words, how do you position yourself? So you probably have some connotations that come to mind when you see some of these logos, like with McDonald's, you might think quick and cheap. Louis Vuitton, you might think expensive. Apple, high quality. So what do you want people to think of when they see your brand? So brand positioning is about influencing consumers and how they perceive your brand and product relative to competitors. Okay, so now we've covered the research side of marketing, and now we're getting into the how. So the big one, the planning part of your marketing. So the marketing mix, it's a set of tools and actions for businesses and marketing objectives. So it refers to, the broad levels of marketing decisions, namely product, price, place, people, promotion, and performance. So we're going to talk about each one of these things. So it's a great way of categorizing how you're going to approach your marketing. So first, your product. So what need does it satisfy? Going back to positioning, how is it branded? How do people think when they see your brand? So going back to your competitor analysis, how is it different from your competitors? So pull this information together, and that'll also help describe your product as well. And this is another way of laying it out, the features, advantage, benefit. So again, the feature describing the product or service itself. The advantage, like, do the products and services provide a competitive advantage over your competitors? And does it fit with what the customer needs? Okay, so the next in the marketing mix is the pricing. So, and this can be a pretty big challenge. So there's some questions you're going to need to answer when you're determining your pricing strategy. So, what is the value of your product? How much will you charge? Will you offer discounts or loyalty rewards? How does your price compare to your competitors? So these kind of are important questions, again, that will need some answers when you're stating your price, because it's just not a matter of like, here's my price, here we go. There's got to be some reason behind it. And when it comes to figuring it out, there's some considerations to factor in. So again, costs, make sure you know your expenses. How much do you need to charge in order to break even? We're going to be talking about financial projections shortly, so we're going to talk about calculating that. And then the competition. So what's your competition charging? How do you compare to them on quality and service? And go back to your competitor analysis chart if you need to. And it's usually not advisable to sell for slightly cheaper than your competitor, because that's when you really start getting into pricing wars, and that's not sustainable for anybody. All right, and then psychology, like, what is the perception at different pricing levels? People often perceive, high price with quality, usually. So if you look at this graphic here on the slide, where do you think you might fit in? Can you think of examples of companies fitting into each one of these quadrants? Like, for example, like top left, so high quality, low price. For me, I would say maybe Kirkland. Top right, high, so that's high price, high quality, Louis Vuitton. Bottom left, so low quality, low price, so maybe something like a Walmart or something like that. Bottom right, so low quality, high price. I kind of don't really want to touch that one. Maybe your favorite cellular provider, who knows? So it's not going to be a perfect answer, and there may be some trial and error, but make sure you've taken this kind of into account as well. Okay, so place. Where are you going to sell? Are you going to sell online, bricks and mortar, or are you going to try and tackle both? And why? So if you have brick and mortar location, what makes that location suitable for your business? Is it close to your market, suppliers, transportation, or the labor? The distribution system represents the route taken by your product in order to reach the end users of your product. So you should discuss the different avenues that you'll be selling the products through as well. So if you're providing a service directly to your customers, how important is accessibility to your customer base, and how much are they willing to pay for it? So if you own a restaurant, for example, what are your hours of operation? Is your location convenient? And is there parking available? You'll have to consider if you're going to own or lease, will you operate out of your own home? What are the construction costs or the leasehold improvement costs if you are going to, start your own space? And remember, don't sign up for anything until your lawyers reviewed it. Landlords handle leases all the time. That's their gig. That's what they do. So your lease can be subject to, financing, inspection as well. So again, have somebody else that's very familiar with them be on your side when negotiating that. And again, in your business plan, if you're applying for financing, you'll need to attach copies of the lease agreement or that intent to lease and construction quotes and things like that. So moving on to people. So this goes back to your target market. So make sure you consider who's actually making the purchasing decision. So if you're targeting kids, and then you're also going to be marketing to the parents. So again, just another little thing to keep in mind. Okay, so promotion. Promotion is really important. How are the customers going to find you? How will you get your message out? So what channels will you use? So use methods that make sense based on your customer profile. So for example, let's say you're targeting elderly people. So TV, mail, that might be pretty effective. For younger populations, maybe stick to more of that social media. That might be more effective that way. So the more you know about how to reach your customer, the better bang for your buck in your marketing budget too. So just a heads up, on page 11 of the business plan template, that includes a whole list of examples of promotional opportunities and ideas if you want to check it out too. Okay, so performance. So you can measure outcomes of your marketing efforts. So first, set your goals for your marketing efforts. And there's a few different types of performance goals, like including, creating awareness, attract new customers, develop a corporate image, establish repeat customers. So then you track it and you measure it. So first, define the channels you want to track. And you can measure things like Google Analytics, social media likes analytics, use promotional codes so you know where they heard it from. So there's a whole slew of different things that you can do. So again, reach out to your business advisor for some help in narrowing that down for you as well. Okay, your operations plan. So this includes a lot of topics. You can see you've got location, equipment and materials, operating procedures, the staff and management, growth, your actual business structure itself, regulations, registrations, capacity, scalability. So again, capacity, so do you know what your capacity is? Like how many items can you produce? How many classes can you teach? How many clients can you serve? Also, I'm going to talk a little bit about, costs of goods sold. So these are the costs that are directly attributable to the production of the goods or services that you're offering. So we're going to bring up the financials later and discuss that too. So All right, so let's dive into it here. So the business structure, this has probably come up, quite a bit for you, especially if you're just starting out. Is, like, what should you be? Like, there's so many different business types that you could be. These are the three most common. So sole proprietorship, partnership, corporation. I'd say like the key differences, like again, like partnership is technically like multiple sole proprietors working together. And before I forget, always consult with a lawyer and accountant when you're actually making the decision as which structure you're choosing, because there's different, legal and tax implications for those as well. And it depends on where you personally sit, which might be most advantageous to you. So a couple things, sole proprietorship, again, usually just the one owner. Kind of the big thing is that you're personally liable for all the debts of the business. But on the upside, it's pretty cheap to start up. And then if we skip all the way over to the corporation, there is limited liability. That's where the liability is held with the corporation itself. And they're paying their own tax returns. But again, there's definitely a lot more costs associated with setting up a corporation too. All right, so the ownership and management plan. So as the owner, you're pretty key to your business. So funders are going to want to know who you are, what your background is, and include your resume and any of the other owners or key management personnel that are involved. You're also going to want to look at other, support professionals. That's really important. That lawyer, that accountant, maybe your bookkeeper, marketing professionals. Ask questions, ask your network for referrals, and treat it like an interview. So you and your, professional must be able to communicate effectively, get along, because you're going to be working together for a long time. Another key one would be, if you are not experienced with bookkeeping, find yourself a good bookkeeper. That's going to save yourself a lot of, grief and stress, if you can. And if you do get a bookkeeper, make sure your bookkeeper and your accountant speak and work well together. So they're key players on your team. So mentoring and networking, they're important too. You'll find that find a group of people who understands what it's like to be an entrepreneur, and become part of that community. And WESC provides mentoring and networking opportunities. Of course, COVID-19, things are a little bit different right now, but hopefully we'll get kind of back into the swing of things and really connecting everyone again in the future when it's safe to do so. So I would really recommend, check out our website, keep an eye on the events that we're doing right now. Again, it's all web-based, but yeah, we'll get on as soon as we can. Okay, your financial plan. So your financial plans have to answer all of these questions. How much do you need to start? How much of your own money are you going to contribute? How much money do you need to borrow? What are you going to do with the money once you have it? And how are you going to pay that back? So that's another big one. And then key, right, to this whole thing is, how profitable is your business? So your financial plan has to answer all these questions. And with your research, gather all this up, create those spreadsheets, and develop like monthly income and cash flow statements. And we'll touch on the cash flow statement here shortly too. Okay, so first we're going to actually talk kind of about some of the startup costs. So you're going to find this chart in the business plan guide. Also, you'll see this on our lending application too. So, so what you're going to see in this is on the left-hand side. This is all of the funds you're going to need to start up. Could be buying a building, or maybe just you're leasing and you need to do some leasehold improvements, and gotta maybe purchase some inventory. You gotta obviously have a marketing budget, pay for some legal fees, maybe a couple of months worth of wages or something until you actually start making some revenue. A little bit of contingency. So that's your total project cost on the left-hand side. And then on the right-hand side of this chart, you're going to see there's the applicant's contribution. So again, the equity. So especially if you're going for lending, everyone wants to see that you're chipping in something too to make this, that it's not just the financing organization that's shouldering the, the liability of this. So basically, you're going to put in your cash that you have available to contribute, and maybe you're actually contributing some assets. Maybe you already have some equipment that you can kind of contribute, so that counts towards it. So then you're going to put in your loan amount below, and so the left-hand side of this chart should equal the right-hand side of this chart as well. And big thanks to Josie for posting so many links that I'm discussing here today in the chat box, so feel free to check that out. Okay, so if you have the cash flow template up on your computer right now would be a good time to open it up. So you'll see, and if you don't have it, no worries. So when you open it up first, it can be kind of daunting. Don't worry about that, because really all you're working with at the moment is the yellow cells, because everything else is protected. This is all kind of auto-populated for you. It's super handy. So what you're going to do is look at the tabs at the bottom of your Excel sheet, and you're going to see right now we are on the monthly cash flow year 1 tab. And all the yellow cells on this one, those are just those startup costs. So we're entering in, what we estimate we might need to get this venture up and running and going. So then we're going to come back to that sheet in just a second. Now we're going to talk about some ongoing operating costs. So these would be things that you need to cover before even making any revenue. So again, rent, salaries and wages, utilities, bringing in some inventory and, having some supplies, any loan payments that you might be making. So back to the spreadsheet now. So if you see at the very bottom, the tab says monthly income statement year 1. So again, the only thing we're changing is the yellow cells. And this is where you get to put in the estimate of, for each month of what you might be paying for those fixed costs. So this is, again, just something that you're going to have to do a little bit of trial and error with, do as much research as you can, see on those reports that you're getting from Square One or EDR, what others are paying. And you do estimated guesses basically at the beginning until you start getting your own data to be able to narrow that down and really making it, a super accurate document. Okay, so part of the spreadsheet is, so above those expenses that we were just looking at, if you scroll a little bit up on that spreadsheet, we're going to see the cost of goods sold. So this includes like the cost of materials for products or service. So it doesn't include the indirect expenses like the, lease or marketing or stuff like that. So how you calculate it, so if the ingredients for my coffee at my cafe is $1 and I'm selling it for $4, that means my cost of goods sold is 25%. So this is the number you're going to enter. So above is where the income items are. So there's just drinks and food. So it automatically populates in cost of goods sold for drinks and food. And all you have to do is put in 25% and it figures out what your costs are. So you don't have to go through and do each month. So kind of handy that way. So again, scrolling up on that sheet is where you are getting into those revenues. So again, you'll see that drinks and food. So you can go through and you can estimate what you might make each month in those particular revenue categories that you have for yourself. So you can see on this particular one, it looks like it doesn't start very high because again, just starting out, and it looks like there's quite a bit of seasonality kind of factored into this as well too. So something to consider for yourself. Okay, so then at the bottom, you can see your net income or loss for each month. So you can see here that the net income is affected by the fact that the first couple of months, again, slow, seasonal, it's a seasonal business. So, so if you want to know how profitable the business is, look at the income statement. If you want to know how much cash you have in the bank, look at the cash flow. Okay, so again, this spreadsheet, it can be a little bit daunting and it takes a while to get used to, but I think once you kind of get into it and play around with it, see how it works, you're gonna really like it. And again, maybe have your business advisor walk you through it a couple of times and just check your work too, because that can be helpful. So to recap, so this is what's included in the income statement. So in addition to your cost of goods and your ongoing expenses, you'll enter in your sales projections to see what your net income or loss is each month. And when you're filling this out, try to be as accurate as possible based on the information and understanding you have. So you're using all of this information gathered in the rest of your business plan to help fill this out. And this will help you make decisions to move forward. Okay, so break-even analysis. And before I forget, in that template, at the tabs at the very bottom, if you look to the right, I think it's blue, it says break-even. It does actually calculate your break-even analysis for you, so super handy. So break-even, again, total revenues equals total costs. So it's calculated for you in that spreadsheet, as I mentioned. And as a startup, it is so important to know your break-even, just to make sure that you're generating enough sales to just cover those expenses and keep you open. Yeah, so that's it. There's a couple of different ways you can actually look at it with the formula itself. So again, like sales equals variable cost plus fixed costs, or just sales minus variable minus fixed equals 0. You didn't make a profit, you didn't make a loss. I see Carrie asked a question. She says, where are the financial charts? So again, those are on our website. I'm sure Josie's gonna post the link again because she's so handy with that. Okay, so next, risk analysis. So it's an important part of your business plan. So it's gonna outline your strengths, your weaknesses, and it's gonna kind of analyze some of those potential hazards and include how you're gonna address those hazards. So for example, if sales are less than expected, causing some cash flow problems, what's your plan? What are you gonna do? So are you gonna go back to maybe doing some part-time work? Maybe you're gonna have to lay off a little bit of some staff. Do you have a line of credit as a backup? Or on the flip side, what if your sales are more than expected and it's causing a supply and delivery problem? Or maybe staffing problems and cash flow, like you can't, purchase enough inventory to keep going. So lenders want to see that you've thought through these various scenarios and that you've addressed them so that they're feeling confident that you're going to be successful. And I see a question here from Gail. Is there a minimum equity percentage required in order to qualify for a loan? And does it depend on the lender? So Gail, fantastic question. Yes, it does depend on the lender. Each lender is a little bit different, but typically, actually, I think we discussed this further on too, but typically it's going to be around 20% equity required. So whether that's cash or equipment. 20% of the total project value. So not the 20% of the loan that you're requesting. So just keep that in mind. Oh, yeah, I knew it was coming. There you go. See, so on here it's 10 to 20%, but it typically, especially now in a little bit more troubled economy, you're going to see it's closer to that 20% pretty consistently. So, yeah, and if you don't have the equity to get the financing that you need, like what are you going to do? So that's a strategy here. Second point is aligning and scaling your growth so that you're actually able to start with a personal cash investment on its own. So you're bootstrapping this. So you're using your own money and the company's revenue to see that growth, because at the moment you might not be in a position to get any lending, which is totally normal. Not everyone has the ability to do that. Okay, so some financing, some sources, obviously, West, we're big fans. Banks, credit unions, governments, there's some grants out there. So just a heads up though on the grants. I would check out provincial and federal websites for grant options. So when you're out there searching for different options, be careful when you see other options out there, and especially if they're asking you to make a small, payment or subscription or whatever it is to even get access to what those grant options are, because it's usually a scam. So just be very, very wary that you probably don't need to be investing money just to see what's available for a grant. So angel investors, yeah, there's definitely a few out there. Family and friends, and that's a positive. A lot of people rely on family and friends if they don't qualify for lending. So again, it could be just small amounts, drop a proper legal agreement to protect both. And again, coming up with that personal equity, what that might be. Sometimes it takes a little while to save up, but it's totally worth it. Oh, yeah, Megan, I just noticed you posted in the chat, Farm Credit Canada. Yes, also definitely an option. With some others, you can think of BDC, Futurepreneur Canada, SIFE. For the angel investors, it would be the SAS Capital Network. Yeah, so I think, Josie, there is a link on our website somewhere. We'll come up with one if we don't anyway. So we'll try to do our best to get that information to you. Okay, so if you are applying for some financing, what are lenders looking at? So credit history. So once you apply for a loan, they are going to be pulling a credit report on you. They use Equifax or TransUnion Canada to check on the personal credit score. And you can check it on it yourself if you want to. And just so you know, if you have a bad credit score, that doesn't necessarily mean you're not getting it. It depends on the organization you're applying for. The reason why I bring that up, because I know that's one of the things that WESCs help accommodate, because we know women have trouble accessing capital. So we want to help, and we know that you might not even have credit. So we want to hear the story too. Viability of the business plan and the likelihood of success. How well thought out is this business idea, and what are the chances of it succeeding? So I think everyone gets excited about the business plan, but if there's no details behind it, the lender gets nervous that there is no actual plan, it's just an idea. Then we're looking at the management. So, capacity, experience of the owner or the manager that they've done this before, or that they've got the correct supports to do it. Another big piece is security. So if you're taking a loan, what is securing that loan? Like, is this going against the business asset that you're purchasing, that equipment? Is that, being held as security? It is possible even to use your house as security to secure that loan for as well. That's pretty typical for entrepreneurs, actually. And again, that owner's investment. Is the owner investing their own money in this as well? So that's pretty important. And Sasha, thank you for the comment about the Saskatchewan Capital Network is no longer operating. Okay, super sad. Sorry about that. Don't check that out then. Okay. So for WESC specifically, when applying here, what we're looking for is the completed business plan with financial projections. We have a personal net worth statement. Again, that's going to be found on our lending workspace page. So on that page, we have the business plan template, cash flow template, the loan application, and the personal net worth statement on that page. So those are going to have to be submitted to start your application. Again, proving that equity. You'll have to be a Canadian citizen or permanent resident. You have to be at least 18. And for WESC, the business must be owned and controlled at least 51% by a woman. Just a heads up, there is an application fee. Just off the top of my head, I believe it's 1%, capped at $500. And there could be other fees associated, like legal fees associated with, like, say, registering against your mortgage and things like that. but we try to give you a heads up pretty close at the very beginning of what any fees might be associated with that. And then membership. So that's another thing. So we like having you as a member while you have a loan with us, so that you do have full access to all the services and support to make sure that we keep you or just assist you with keeping your business on track and successful as well. Okay, so I just seen a question up here from Megan. Do you know of any resources that directed towards immigrant women? Many are at serious disadvantage because of their learning curves, cultural norms, education, etc. Yes, that is, sorry, the name is escaping me of the organization right now that actually helps with that. Josie, if you remember it off the top of your head, can you post it there? Saskatoon Open Door Society, thank you very much. There it is in the link. And I do know that this is actually something that WESC is taking a serious look at right now, and we're going to do our best to help support newcomers to Canada and get them successful, because again, they have some serious barriers that they've got to overcome. Okay, so I think this is close to the end of the presentation. So top 10 tips for the entrepreneurs. Have a business plan and revisit it often. Make a plan for yourself of, you're going to, at the beginning of your business, maybe revisit every 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And as you get more comfortable and familiar, maybe it goes to an annual review. So it depends on what works for you. And get those professionals on board. Again, that lawyer, accountant, bookkeeper, those mentors, those friends and family that can support you. Read the fine print of everything. So I know it's time consuming and rather annoying, but it's going to be so critical that you read the fine print, that you don't get yourself kind of trapped in a situation you can't get out of. And establish relationships with that banker, accountant, lawyer. Yeah, talked about that one. Seek out other entrepreneurs because you don't have to learn everything yourself the hard way. Reach out and support them, and they can support you back. And even, if it works, you get referrals too. Join a mentorship group. That's also, there's lots of new opportunities popping up, even within WESC. We've got some new programs coming up. And Josie, I'm sure you're gonna post our programs link in the chat as well. So some good ones are like the exchange that is running right now, with Founders Table is running right now. So really great programs. So network and build that community. So again, being out and about right now virtually, just getting your name out there and getting people familiar with who you are and what you do. So networking can be a bit of a grind because you sometimes don't see the return right away. And then remember to work on your business and not just in it, because I know you started your business because you're excited about that thing that you do, that you love. But again, as an entrepreneur, you got to, take that commitment of managing the business side of your business and the risk that's associated with it. And remember, delegate and empower your employees. I know it's tough sometimes letting go and having somebody else do some of that work, but if you can train them early and you can start trusting them, then you can start working on other things and you're just going to soar. So the last one, obviously, have fun, enjoy living the dream of entrepreneurship, right? It's a wild ride. Yeah, that's it. That's what we got. So we covered all the topics of what's in the business plan again. So that's why it's called Business Plan Basics. Hopefully we provided some resources for you that you find helpful. And if you have any questions, go to our website, check out our resources. You'll see that we've got a phone number there. Again, my email address, ccote@wesc.ca. I'd be happy to fill you in a little bit about WESC, and if you're interested in membership, I can definitely chat with you about that too. So if you have any other further questions, if anything popped up after, feel free. I'll stay on here a couple more minutes just to see if anything pops into your head and we can address those. Otherwise, again, just pop me an email. Oh, and thank you all so much for attending. It was a lot of fun rolling through a program like this, and you all had great questions, and you're patient even though we just flew through the program, so that's really great. Thank you all for attending. I did see somebody was asking how they're going to be posted. I'm going to actually let Josie handle that one, since she's the one that will be doing that shortly. Yeah, good point, Linda. Good luck, everyone. Deborah, if you're referring to getting a hard copy in the mail, I'm assuming you mean of the slide deck. I'm sure we could arrange that. Just pop me an email with the mailing address, and we'll try to accommodate for you. Or phone the front desk as well.
I'm just gonna pop in who we were just talking to with the PDF. That was that Linda? It is sent as a PDF as well in the automatic email. So tomorrow at about 10 a.m., you'll receive a link with the recording of the actual full presentation today. You'll receive a link to the PDF of the slide deck, and you'll receive a link with that business plan basics template and the cash flow template as well. So all of that should be in the email that you'll receive tomorrow at about 10 a.m.
Awesome. Thank you, Josie. Okay, so I think that's it. There's no further questions, and people are logging off for their day. You're welcome, Maureen, for the reminders. Okay, so I think that's it again. Thanks everyone that's still on the line. There's just a couple of you. You have a fantastic day, and hope to see you again at another WESC webinar. See you later.